Hello everyone, welcome on into the Clayshare studio. Here we are, Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. You know what that means. It's time for Clayshare Live. We're here every week with a broadcast and a tutorial, and this week we have two guest artists joining us. We have Drew Seymour and his dad, Don Seymour. Their family owns Clayscapes pottery, and we're going to have a glazing tutorial. And so I think Don's going to walk us through most of the glazing work. I think he's going to do it all, and Drew's going to assist him. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. So we're going to have this session where they're going to do the tutorial part, and they're also going to answer any questions about glazes, their glazes specifically, but if you have questions about glaze in general, of course they will answer those as well. You know, I have my own line of glazes from Clayscapes. I have 6 currently you can get. Some of them are right here and you all have seen them. We actually are going to give away a 6-pack. It's a pick 6-pack of Clayscapes glazes at the end of this evening. So you pick the 6 you want, and the winners are chosen randomly. You just go to clayshare.com and sign up for our emails. If you're a premium member of Clayshare, you're automatically entered, and you do not have to watch to win. All right, so that's all the business stuff out of the way. Let's go on over to Clayscapes Pottery in Syracuse, New York. Hey, guys.
Hey, Jess. Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have you here.
Welcome.
We're excited to be here.
I stole Andrew's apron.
I love your Clayshare apron.
Right. We're gonna be doing some glaze demonstration for you guys. Don, my dad, is going to talk about
your Clayshare apron. Sorry, everybody. Let's go on over to.
We got echoes.
Yeah, that was my fault. So I just wanted to let everybody know that if you have questions, just type them in if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube or on the Clayshare app, or clayshare.com. And silly me had the volume up on her computer. So I'm sorry, that echo was me. I usually have it muted, but tonight, technology got me.
So we're gonna go over mixing glaze. We're also gonna be talking about prepping your work, things like that, hydrometer readings, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm gonna wind up going and being the behind the camera, and Dad is gonna take care of your glazing needs. So take it away, Dad.
Da, da, da.
All right. And if you all have any questions, again, type them in and I will relay them.
So the first thing that you would want to do is prepare your bisqueware. And I've done this ahead of time. I use a little silicon carbide grinding stone, and I remove any little sharp edges and just brush that off so that it's nice and clean. The next thing that I'm going to do, we're going to get to mixing 10 pounds of spearmint here in a few minutes. But in order to make this go a little quicker, I'm going to wax. I'm going to do my waxing first. And Drew, is this in the picture? The
Nope.
wax?
I'll put it there.
Okay. So we put wax comes, we use liquid wax. It's white, but we put food coloring in it. A little bit of fun. And also you can see where the wax goes on your pot a little easier. I made the mistake this time of putting yellow in, so it doesn't show up real well on the brown, on the iron bearing clay. So normally we do blue or red or green, but I said, let's try yellow. That was a mistake. But it still works. So I use a sponge, and I just sponge this right on. Nice big swaths, easy to apply. Get your sponge wet first so that the wax will flow right off it. And then it's important to, after you use the wax in the sponge, it's important to rinse it out with warm water so it doesn't gum up the sponge. And it's nice because I can put this right on, draw a nice line very easily. And the wax, although it's yellow, it still does show up because it shows up as being wet. And I don't have to keep going back in to dip my sponge. It holds a good amount. So that's the way I wax. So now I'm going to rinse my sponge real quick. Not in the water that I'm going to use to mix my glaze. So that's that. This wax we get from Standard Ceramics, and I like it because it dries quickly and it dries hard. Some glazes take longer, some waxes take longer to dry, but this dries quick and hard, so that's why I like to use it on the bottoms of work. What do you mean?
So we already got a glaze question. If a glaze sits between glazing sessions, should you remeasure the specific gravity every time you go to use it?
Absolutely, I do. It's a very good practice because if the lid's not tight, water can evaporate off. The other thing is, as you use a glaze, water is being taken out because it's being absorbed into the bisqueware. So you may need to rehydrate your glaze a little bit. So every time I use a glaze, I do check the specific gravity or the hydrometer reading. So now, in terms of our process, I'm going to demonstrate doing one of my favorite combinations, which is cream with coastal blue over the top. And in order to do that, I need to apply my cream glaze and let it set for about 20 minutes before I start applying my coastal. That gives the best application and best outcome.
We'll do a close up here of that combo.
Some glazes work really well if you put one, say a blue glaze down and a green glaze over it. You can do one after the other. I found that this combination, you need to wait about 20 minutes in between. So thank you, sir.
Put that back up for a second. Can you show it was a little low in the, I'm sorry, I should have directed you. It was a little low in the, now come down, there, stop right there, hold it like that. So everybody can see the swirls that you get. And you'll understand how that happens when Don shows you how he glazes, but it's pretty amazing.
So I have my brush, and I just have a little bit of cream in here, and I have my brush loaded up, and I'm just going to layer it on here. And I keep it up high on the shoulder, because if it gets down too far, it does run, it does move. I don't know if you can see that, but it does move. And if you get it down too low, it'll move and run and stick to the shelf.
So that's your dippable version of cream that you're brushing on.
That is correct.
Good. And then another question, how did you come to the determination that you needed to wait 20 minutes?
I ruined a lot of work.
Oh no.
Because I put it down too low. Oh no, for 20 minutes. I put the cream on, and then I put the coastal right over the top of it real quick, and the coastal wouldn't absorb where the cream was. It looked like it did in the application, but in the firing it slid off. And if I wait too long, it gets too much glaze and it blisters and boils and bubbles. So I'm just gonna.
It's timing.
It's time. I found, and like I say, I found that out by throwing a lot of work in the trash can. So these are just some bowls, some little ice cream cereal bowls.
When you were using another glaze with cream, would you do the same thing? Wait the 20 minutes always with cream, or only with this combo?
Just the combination with the coastal blue.
So normally with cream, you just immediately use another glaze.
Right over it.
Don't wait.
Yep.
Okay.
This is an oil candle. And I don't glaze the insides. I use a lacquer so that it doesn't leak. It doesn't, if I glaze the insides, oil will seep through. And that's a little bead, just a little clay bead on top. And I'll do the mug here too.
Do you want to do the?
No, I'm doing that all closely. Okay. So just drizzled on there, very loose. And that's the kind of thing that you're going to get with this type of application that I'm going to show.
So a question about the cream moving. Does it move a lot on flat pieces, like things that are made with cookie cutters or like, you know, tiles?
No, cream by
Will
itself
stay.
on a flat piece does not move. It's very stable.
And then we had another question about the cream glaze.
Of cream and coastal on a flat plate does not move. It needs the verticality for it to move. If it's on a flat surface, it does not move.
It's staying put. Okay, good to know. And then,
but you do get color development.
When you are using cream as the brushable version, though, it'd be thicker consistency. So
that is absolutely correct.
So more like yogurt. Not like you have any
heavy
show, but heavy cream, yeah, for the brushable.
Heavy cream. And actually, it's not that it's has less water in it that makes it thicker. It's the compounds that we put in it to make it brushable and flow off your brush so that it
makes
spreads.
It fluffy.
Yes. So we wanted to look at some tools now.
Whatever you want to do next.
All right.
Yeah. So and I got a quick question about your clay body. What clay are you using there tonight?
This is Miller/Laguna number 75. This combination, coastal on B-mix on a white clay body, looks like this on the interior. It's very
pale.
It's very coastal. Coastal, that's where it's got its name from. Very soft. So other things that we're going to use tonight, this is a very expensive scoop. The bottom,
it can be. Detergent's not cheap.
they make great scoops. Cut the bottom off. Got a nice handle. They hold a generous amount of glaze, and it doesn't cost you anything because you're recycling it. Graduated cylinder if we need it. Hydrometer, sponge, very important. Sieve. We're not going to use this because it'll be just too loud, but we use this a lot in the studio. Drill mixer.
The Clayscape, the cream you're using that you're brushing on, it is your dippable. Did you change it at all, or is it straight from the bucket? You didn't thin it or anything?
Didn't thin it straight from the bucket.
Straight from the bucket. And they do, I just want to clear this up for folks that are watching. Clayscapes sells their cream in a dippable version and a brushable version. So you can get one that is, you know, made to be brushed, and then you can get one that's made to be dipped, but you can use the dippable one for accents like this, for brushing on.
Right, it's for accents. Because if I wanted to brush a whole piece, it'd be it wouldn't have the dipping doesn't have the compounds in it, so it'd be really thin. I'd have to put a lot of coats on, and the brush would wind up sticking. But with the dippable version, with the brushable version, with the brushing compounds, it flows off the brush.
What do you need next?
So next we're going to do a little mixing of spearmint, and so little trick for you. You know, I used to dump the glaze in the bucket and add the water, and I get this big cloud of dust. And so in order to prevent that, I've got 10 pounds of spearmint here, just as spearmint. And I'm going to make a little funnel, so to speak, with my bag. And I got this.
And so I'm going to just answer a question. Should cream always be under the colored glaze?
For this combination, that's the way I like it. That's just my personal preference. Some people like the cream over the top of the coastal. You have to experiment and just find out what you like to do.
And I have a little saying, cream goes great with everything. And I put cream on top of all my glazes, all the Clayscapes glazes, Amico, Mako, doesn't matter. I'll put, that Don's showing is one of my mugs with their red hook and then cream on top. So back up just a hair, Drew. It was a little out of focus. There you go. And that's the
Crown
what's your purple
Heights.
one called? Crown Heights with cream. That's a mug I did for them too. So you can see the cream flows and it looks like it breaks, but it doesn't. It's all smooth. So like you're looking at what looks like there's texture. It's not. It's completely smooth to the touch. The cream melts in, but it looks like beautiful hairs for waterfall patterning happening down the side of the mug. So you can put it on anything.
So spearmint, 10 pounds of spearmint. I'm going to add approximately 96 ounces of water. I'm going to add a little bit at a time here. And so I'm not getting a big cloud. And so this is nice because then you just add your water to your glaze. And normally I wouldn't have spilled, but because I'm live, I have to make a mess. And so this gets you a kind of a slurry, if you will.
Is it breaking the bag?
So the brush Don is using is called a Sumi, S-U-M-I brush. It is a bamboo handled brush used a lot in Japanese and Chinese calligraphy. And I use them a lot as well. And you can find them at any of your art supply stores. Don, do you all sell those brushes there too at Clayscapes?
This brush that I used this evening was handmade deer
A
tail.
handmade Sumi. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a.
Sell the Sumis? Yes, we do.
Okay,
And
so
so
you can
now
get those there.
You show it?
Yeah, people want to see it. Look at that. So that's a handmade one from deer tail with the bamboo
In the
handle.
bamboo
But you
handle.
yeah. So that's a piece of art in itself, that brush.
So now I've got my slurry made, and I'm just going to empty that into my 5-gallon bucket.
Sorry, everybody. Earthquake. I'm going to move so you can see.
And the bag got a hole in it, so it didn't work very well. But normally, of course, when you're live, things go wrong.
It's just how it is.
Just how it is. And it's all about adapting, right, Jess?
That's right.
So we've pre-measured the water here to add 10 ounces per pound. And so that's
100 ounces.
what we're doing.
So that's for my spearmint. That's 10 ounces per pound.
And that's it's still gonna make it pretty thick.
Right. And so then I added a little more water into the bag to get the rest of the glaze out. Just slosh that around a little bit, get the rest of that glaze out. Now what I would do in the studio, I would use the drill mixer to mix this up. Don't really want to treat all your ears to that. That would be obnoxious. So just a little tip to make you a little healthier in the studio so you don't get all of that dust.
You take it.
I'll just put it there. And like I said, drill mixer makes this a lot easier. Do we have another bucket, Drew, to sieve this into?
I do.
Drew's going to grab me another bucket.
Okay, so I'm gonna scooch this over. I'm getting messy today. This bucket here is our existing bucket of spearmint that is low. So we're just going to add the new batch and sieve it right into the
Can I have the sieve?
sieve it right in.
see all that. All this here would normally just be broken right up by the drill mixer. But again, we don't want to kill your ears. So I don't think we need to show them.
I mean, we want to do specific gravity, but
Right.
I can work on that while you talk if you want.
Any questions, Jess?
Well, we do have a few questions. And I just want to let everybody know that this is live, and I know it's not the same as a class that's uninterrupted, but we have a few thousand folks watching tonight across 4 platforms. So there's a ton of questions coming through, and I really hate to ignore people's questions because that would be very impolite of me. So just letting everybody know that's how this format works when we do the live broadcast. But I will try not to interrupt too much because I know some people that can mess with the flow. So we did have some questions about safety, and would you normally wear a respirator when you're mixing glaze?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a little water, just a little thick. Yeah, because I'm on camera, you wouldn't be able to hear me.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely, a respirator.
And then a question about the sieve. What size sieve are you using? And when you push the bits through, do you just use your hand, or do you have other things that someone could use to push through?
I'm just using my hand. There's nothing hazardous or that would go through the dermis of the skin, so it's completely safe. I don't know, I like to get dirty, so I always use my hand. A lot of people will use a rib, like a rubber rib or a spatula or a brush, like a good sized paintbrush to do it. But I don't know, I'm an old time potter. I like to use
Old fashioned.
And
Now,
what
this is
mesh sieve? Did I miss that?
no 60 mesh.
60 mesh. Yeah. And there's been a few suggestions. So I do wear gloves when I do it. And a lot of folks, and I will often use a brush, like a stiff bristle brush, like a cleaning brush to sieve it through. That can help push it through easier. Don's got great big hands, so he can really get it through easy. For me, I have little hands, so the brush is nice.
Yeah. The 60 or 80 mesh sieve is the best when you're sieving. If you get to 100 mesh or smaller than that, it's going to take a lot of effort to get it through. If you do like a 40 mesh, it's not going to break it up enough. So when you put your hand in the bucket, when I put my hand in the bucket, and once you do some mixing, you'll be able to tell. And I pull it out, I can see the definition of my fingers and knuckles and lines and veins in my hand. If you put your hand in and you pull it out and it's like a glove and you can't see any of that, it's too thick. It's too thick, okay? The other thing about mixing glaze is you need to do it ahead of time, because what happens is if I make a fist and I stick my hand in a bucket of water and pull it out and open my hand, it'll be dry. And the same thing's true of the particles in the glaze. If I make a fist and put my hand in the water and leave it for 24 hours and pull it out, still a fist. If I opened it up, it'd be wet inside. And that's what happens with the particles of glaze. So you need to mix it a little thick, and you need to mix it ahead of time so you can then bring it to the right consistency the next day. So that's just a few tips on mixing that glaze.
If somebody mixed that glaze and realized they added too much water, what would you suggest they do?
2 things. In this glaze, in spearmint, there is nothing that is water soluble, all right? So if you let the glaze sit and water would come to the top, and you could drain some of that off or siphon some of that off, or you could let some of it evaporate and then remix it. there's nothing water soluble. In some glazes, there are water soluble materials. And so in a case where it's got a water soluble material, if you take off some of that water, you're also removing chemical ingredients from the glaze. So, you know, you need to know what the situation is there. Spearmint, there's nothing water soluble, so you could take some water off, no problem. The other thing that you can do is add more dry material to it to take up that extra water. Does that help?
Does help. Thank you very much.
We need.
I'll just move that bucket.
There was a question about glaze consistency. Like my chun likes to be thick. It seems thick. You know, it's just the way the glaze is. Are there other glazes that you have from Clayscapes that like to be thicker?
Like to be thicker. Well, I'll tell you the way I do things that like to be thicker is I do 2 coats. We make our glazes. I started this when I was a production potter, and I made my glazes on a little bit on the thinner side, so that if it needed because I had less glaze defects. So if it needs to be thicker, I do a second dip, and I'm going to show you that right now. So this is the coastal blue. It's been about 20 minutes, hasn't it, since I
Ish. Do the big one first.
Okay. So this is how I do 2 coats of glaze. And I've waxed the bottom. And so this is bigger than a 5-gallon bucket. So I put it in a bigger pan so that I can glaze it all. And when we glaze here, we don't count, because if I count to 3, 1, 2, 3, and somebody else goes 1, 2, 3, we have 2 different glaze applications. So our best recommendation on the application is as soon as it goes in, you bring it out. No counting, so that we all can get to the same application. So this is the proper consistency. Measured that beforehand. So this is just going to go in and come out. Let it drain off. You see it's draining off from the wax. Let it drain out. And I'm just going to help get that excess glaze off. And now I'm going to right it. We got some drips there. That's a little too heavy, so I'm just wiping that down. And it's starting to dry. Can you see that the water's dissipating? It's being soaked in. The glaze is drying. In the meantime, I'm stirring my glaze. And so this is the reason why I make them a little thinner, because if I had to go set this down, pick up another piece and do 10 or 20 or 30 pieces like this, I'm doing more work. So I just hold it right in my hand. And now I'm going to go in for the second dip. And I'm going to let all that excess drain off. And then with this glaze, I found if I wipe the rim, it creates less problems. I don't want it to curtain down the side, which would put another coat of glaze. Okay. Now you say, what do I do because of that spot that I held in my hand? I just normally, this is in a big bucket of glaze, and I have some glaze that's kind of pasty on the side. So I would just take a little bit of that paste and dab this area where my thumb was.
You're holding it. You hold it.
Is it okay?
Yeah, just trying to keep you in frame.
You're framing me. Yes, he's framing me. All right, and then I would put it down on the table and just let it dry. And then after it sets up to the point where I can touch it, I just flip it over and sponge it down and wipe all the little dregs and drabs off. And because we got a big bowl here of glaze, I can do these other pieces. So it's been about 20 minutes?
Yeah, you're good.
So this one, I put my little signature, little stamp on it. And so I want that to show up. So I'm going to cover that with my thumb. I'm just going to stir this. I'm going to dunk that. Twist and shout, baby. Get those glaze drips off. I'm sorry, my son doesn't find me humorous.
I'm just trying to be as steady as possible.
Right? So like I say, when I was a production potter, if I was doing 50 of these, I'm setting one down and picking another one up, and it's a lot more time consuming than just holding it right in your hand. Stir the glaze a little bit, put your second coat on. And I hold it upside down, get all those drips off so that when I write it, there's not curtaining going down and drips coming down the side. Then I got a couple little finger marks there. Again, I would take a little bit of paste that I would have in the main bucket and just touch that up. And since I have these done, I'm going to glaze them right now. Because if I let it sit and come back to it in an hour, where the cream is, it's going to absorb too much of the coastal blue and it's going to blister. And since it's live, and my bag of glaze poked a hole, I'm waiting to drop this in the bucket of glaze. Because that never happens, does it, Jess?
It does happen. Yes. No, it never happens. We never drop things in buckets of glaze. And then you have to scrub it clean and start over. That never happens.
Right.
Never. Actually just happened to me the other day with a mug. So happens all the time. So we have a question about if you wanted to glaze the inside of the piece. I know you weren't glazing the inside of those. How would you do it?
I'm going to show you that real on my next piece. One thing that I do want to talk about, though, is I'm going to do this mug next. And it's important that this combination with one coat doesn't give you as much color. 2 coats gives you great color. But I found through throwing out many mugs and learning the hard way, the glaze would run down the inside of the handle and run down the outside of the body, and it would collect at the joint here, and it would run around the edge, and it would stick to the shelf. It would be a drip. So what I do is, once this is glazed in this state that we're applying, I'll scrape this joint back, and the glaze will run down the inside of the handle and the exterior of the body, and it will fill in where I've scraped away, but it won't run around here and drip and hit the shelf. Because this glaze does move. It doesn't run, but it moves. And if it moves in where there's more glaze, then you get running. So I was going to do this next, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question was how. This is already dirty. How to do the inside, correct?
Yeah.
The other thing I'm going to talk about is doing the inside. As opposed to putting a little bit of glaze in and turning it around and getting it to come out, and then having a big bare spot and putting more glaze in, and then I'm getting too much glaze on the surface. I'm going to fill the cup almost to the top, and I'm holding it in my left hand, and I'm going to think of the face of a clock. I'm going to dump at 11 o'clock and rotate it around, and it will coat the whole inside of the mug. If I was holding it in my right hand, I can't dump at 11 and rotate it around because my arm doesn't go that way. So I need to dump at 1 o'clock and rotate it this way and dump the glaze out. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm just going to fill this up So I'm almost to the top. I'm gonna dump, real quick motion. Got to get my drips off. Got to get my thumb, make sure my thumbprint is glazed. So that when I write this, there's no curtaining. It's not running down the outside. Oh, be careful of that whirlpool. All right, so it's dissipating, the water's dissipating, it's drying up, right? I'm ready for my second coat. Very quick motion, in, out. No counting. And I gotta take a little bit of that glaze off the rim. And I got a couple more bowls here I can show you this procedure with. And then again, a little dab will do you for all you seniors out there. Young kids don't know what that means. I'm gonna go over here and put it down. So I got a couple bowls here. And so my bowls have a nice foot ring on them so that it elevates the bowl off the table. Stop moving it. Elevates the bowl off the table, but it's also there so I can grab a hold of it when I'm glazing. So I'm just gonna pour this right in. I'm gonna dump at 11 and rotate it around. Coated the whole interior. Now, Jess, you brought up your Chun Blue. I like it on a little thicker, so I do a double coat of it. Just like this. But it's also nice because it kind of, if it's one coat and it's a little thin, it's kind of like a very nice light celadon look too.
Right. And for me, what I do, Don's doing 2 dips in his glaze. I mix my glazes thicker and I do 1 dip. So that's the way I do it. But you can do it thinner and do 2 dips, right? So I think it just depends on preference. Do you find people have more success when they do it thinner and do 2 dips?
Yeah, and that's why I did 2 dips, because initially I was doing 1 dip and I had a lot of pinholing. I probably had my glazes a little thick. So I wound up with some pinholing and some blistering. And so I went to thinning them down. And then if it needed more color, I just do the second dip.
So that thinning it down helps prevent the pinholes.
It did in the glazes I was using at the time. And so I've been at it for a few years. So I just have always stuck with that.
Great.
Shake, shake, shake. Get that extra off. Because if I didn't and I righted it, that's 1 coat, and I write it and it runs down, that's a second coat. And then if I do a second coat and I have glaze drips and write it again, that's a 4th coat. So now I have a lot of glaze on there, and you'll definitely get pinholes and blistering. Also, your work will absorb different, your glaze will absorb differently into your bisque ware depending on what you bisque fire to. We bisque fire to 06 here. So if you bisque fire to 08, it will absorb more glaze. If you bisque fire to 04 or 05, it's going to absorb less glaze. So that's going to alter your application as well.
Ta-da!
Like magic.
Now this one here, I just gotta make sure my hand is dry. So this is dry to the point where I can pick it up. and you can see where the wax.
Hold it lower. There you go.
So now I can just take my sponge and wipe this right off.
Need a taller tripod for my phone.
It's fine, Drew.
So I just scrub this down real good so there's no glaze on it. And I do the edge. I don't need to take the time to do this now. Well, I might as well. I have it in my hand, right? Now I put it back on the table with the splatters of glaze, so I'm going to have to clean that off later anyway. But hey, you got to tell it like it is. They're going to see it on camera.
That's right.
So
Got a couple questions if you don't mind taking them. So when you have the glaze, the thickness you have it there, is the hydrometer reading, is that the specific gravity that you're using right now? What's up on the Clayscapes website? What you have there?
Correct. That's
okay.
correct.
So folks that are watching that are asking me about the specific gravity of the glazes, this is the ones he's using is measured to that specific gravity. And then a question about wiping the rim.
Yes.
Some folks were asking if you wipe the rim, won't it be bare?
No, because I didn't press that hard. I just took off a little bit of excess glaze. There's material in coastal blue that has a lot of outgassing. And so if I found through, again, a lot of testing and throwing a lot of pots away, that if I left the same thickness coat at the rim, it would bubble and blister. And so what happens is this material outgasses. And so as it outgasses from the side, the gases travel up the side. And I found that and then they dissipate off the top of the piece when it's fired. And I found if I thinned this down, if I didn't thin it down, it had all the glaze and that gases from the rim, plus what was traveling up the side, and it collected. And I got a lot of blistering. So by thinning it down, I removed enough glaze, well, with the finger, I remove enough glaze that there's not as much material there, and the gases come up the side and dissipate off the top.
So to be clear, when he's brushing off the rim, he's not pushing on the rim. It's more of just like taking your finger that has glaze on it, pressing it very gently and just sliding it around, and the glaze that's dripping down
Comes off.
just kind of floats off onto your hand.
Here's a finished one that you can see. I did the same thing with.
So you can see it's beautiful. Yeah.
And this glaze, this is coastal blue. We have 3 glazes in our lineup that are based on the same formula: coastal blue, garden green, and Arctic blue. Those are the only ones that you have to do this with. If it's cream or just a spearmint or chun, you don't have to do that. It's just these 3 glazes because of this particular material that's in it. So things you learn by failure. Failure is a good thing because it teaches you how to solve problems. So all those years throwing stuff out was really frustrating, but in the end, I learned a lot. And I'm passing it on, hopefully.
Did you want to do something with those cups?
No, that's just here in case I get scratched.
Do you want more questions? So we had some folks asking about if you could explain hydrometer, how to use it, what specific gravity is, all that.
Okay. So I'm going to use this because it's darker and it'll be easier to see on camera.
Fair enough. Let me move
Okay.
it. Let me move it in.
So because I have a shallow bowl, if this were in a 5-gallon bucket, I would just use my hydrometer in the 5-gallon bucket. And what you do with the hydrometer does is it gives you a specific gravity without having to weigh the material. Okay. And I just found that the hydrometer was quicker and faster to use than having to keep weighing out material and cleaning out dishes and so forth. So a hydrometer is a glass tube with a lead weight in it and a piece of paper inside with a scale. And so what you do is, in this case, I will fill my graduated cylinder, and then I will put my hydrometer in gently, because if you drop it, it will bob, and then you won't be able to read your scale. So I put my hydrometer in, gently let it go, and it will find its level, and then I can bring it out, and I can read on the scale what my specific gravity is. So we're going to do that. So I'm just going to fill this up. You can't fill it all the way to the top because you need to leave some room for the hydrometer. And on the large hydrometer, there's two scales. There's 70 to 0, and there's also 2.0 to 1.0. If I'm going to use this scale here, 2.0 to 1.0. If I put it in water, it would go right up to 1. All right. If I put it in something really thick, it'd be at 2, and I would need to add water. And so I'm going to put this, it's got to be dry. That's right. So I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to put it into 1.6, and I'm going to let it go, and it's going to find its level. Okay.
So it's floating in that glaze.
It's floating in the glaze. Okay. So I'm going to pull it out, and it's going to give me a reading. All right. It's at 1.47.
Is it focused?
Is it focused, Jess?
So you can see where it
No,
floated.
Back up a little. Back up. Come more towards the center, Drew. No, it's not focusing. Can you? It's trying to focus on your dad.
Yeah. But you can see that basically the line.
Yeah, we see.
Is, that's
You can see it now.
Well, we see it. It's just tiny.
It's blurry.
Yeah.
It's
trying.
It's all right. So the question was specific gravity. Why is that important? Since we're measuring it and doing that, it's a great question.
Why is it important? It's important for consistency. Okay. So that if you want to make a batch of glaze and glaze with it, have your work come out a certain way, all right, and then 3 months later you make another batch and you have a different specific gravity, it's a different consistency, and you apply it, it's going to come out different. So if you want consistency, specific gravity is very important to get the same application solution from batch to batch to batch to batch to batch. Does that help?
It does help.
What other way if you don't have a hydrometer, how would you measure specific gravity?
If you don't have a hydrometer, you would need a scale. And what you would do is you would fill your scale in a graduated cylinder, and you would fill your graduated cylinder with 100 milliliters of water and read your scale in terms of how much that weighs. And then you would empty that out, and you would fill your graduated cylinder with 100 milliliters of glaze and weigh that. And then you divide one by the other, and you get the specific gravity. So that you would divide the glaze, all right, say it weighed 147 grams, and you divide that by 100, that's a specific gravity of 1.47. Okay. And again, I use the hydrometer method because for me, when I was in production, it was faster, quicker, easier to do. And so if your glaze, when you're weighing it, weighed 1.5, it's too heavy, right? You need to add more water. If it was 1.2, no, if it was 1.2, it's too heavy. You need to add more water.
So another really good question just came in from YouTube. So will the viscosity of a glaze affect the reading compared to weighing the glaze?
Viscosity does, I don't find viscosity is important in glaze as it is in slip. Viscosity is important, particularly in slip casting, because it's how fast it pours, how fast it moves. This is such a quick process. I don't find that viscosity has been an issue. Scratch, scratch, scratch.
All right. Thank you.
What else do you want to talk about? What time is it? I don't even know what time it is.
We are got 2 more minutes actually before we have to end the session and do the giveaway.
Oh wow, it's that late. Holy
I
cow.
know, you guys went fast.
So do you want to pull the win? Are we pulling winners? Is that what we do?
No, I got it already. We already got it. We announced it. We do it. We got it all done. We'll do it when we kick it back to me. So you guys don't have to worry about it. You're just the awesome sponsors that donating the 6 glazes. So if anybody has any last minute questions for Don, there's so many other questions. I know we've got, across all the platform, thousands of people watching. So it's hard to get to everybody's question. If you have a question and it was not addressed, you can always email Don at Clayscapes Pottery or Andrew at clayscapespottery.com. And they will be happy to answer any questions about glazing, their glazes. You can go to their website and see them. But tell us what's going on Saturday. What's happening this Saturday?
For technical support and to help the clay community.
Saturday.
Raku Day on Saturday.
Yep.
Yep, we're doing Raku Day, which is a big open house. A couple of years ago, we didn't have it last year, but the year before we did 27 loads of Raku, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pots. It's a big open house here in Syracuse, and we're going to have a photographer come in and do a helicopter, not a helicopter, a drone. We're going to get some drone footage and
Food trucks.
We're going to have food trucks here, and it's going to be a big party. And the weather, thankfully, this time of year can be really dicey, but the weather looks like it's going to be in the mid 40s and clear, no precipitation. So that's good.
Perfect for Raku. And Raku, I mean, all the other stuff's great, but Raku firing. So
Raku
fantastic. Raku Drew. Yes, so please don't miss that. Again, everybody, if you have more questions for the folks at Clayscapes, please feel free to reach out to them. You can always reach out to me if you have general glaze questions as well. If it's specific to Clayscapes glazes, I will send you on to those folks. But, since they carry my glazes, I kind of know a bit about them too. So I'll help you out if I can. So
just a thing or two.
Just a thing or two. All right, Don and Drew, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to kick it back over to me, and I'm going to give
stuff away because that's always the best. All right. Love to you all at Clayscapes. All right, I've got a winner. So we are going to give away a 6-pack of glazes donated by Clayscapes Pottery. You get to pick the 6. So it's the Clayscapes Pottery Pick 6. And you can pick either their brushable pints or their dippable 5-pound boxes. So the glazes come in 2 separate ways. Not all of them come in brushable. All of them are available in dipping. So it just depends how you glaze and what you are more comfortable using as your glaze application. I use both and I show both. Now, some of the glazes I have before me, actually all of them are Clayscapes glazes. I want to show you. This is my Chun Blue. This is Clayscapes Amber Celadon, just to show you some of the great things they have. I love glazes with texture. Here's my Oribe, which is a fabulous green on texture, but oh, here it is on a piece with no texture. So same glaze, 2 different clay bodies, it totally changes. Cobblestone with my spearmint. Don was talking about my spearmint a lot. These are all glazes you can pick from. Of course, you can go to their website and see them, and I've shared a lot of their glazes in the past. If you ever get to Clayscapes Pottery, which if you're within driving distance, I suggest you go this Saturday and you can see them in person. So this is spearmint with cream on top. Dawn was just using cream. Here is what happens when you put cream on top of my spearmint. It's amazing. Here's cream on my cobblestone. So just a little different option, right? So the cream looks fabulous. I also have a blue. If you're a blue person, here's cream on lake blue, and here is lake blue on cobblestone. So 2 different ways to use it. All right, I got a winner here. We're giving away a 6-pack tonight and a 6-pack next Wednesday. Now, next Wednesday in Clayshare Live, it is our 4th or 5th annual Gifts for Potters. We do a countdown of the 12 best gifts of the year for potters, and I share them all with you. And yes, I do sing at the very end the 12 gifts of potters to the tune of the 12 days of Christmas. So yeah, you know, you can sign off before I sing, although a lot of folks enjoy it because we all need a little comedy relief. All right, tonight's winner is, no drum roll, but I'll announce it anyways, Marcy Courtney. Congratulations, Ms. Marcy. You've won yourself a pick 6. You pick any 6 of the glazes that you would like to try from Clayscapes Pottery. We'll be connecting you with those folks there and get you your prize. Next week we'll have another prize, so be sure to come back then. If you did not win, I'm sorry, but you can all be winners by going and getting yourself some Clayscapes glazes. Now, to enter all of our giveaways, just go to clayshare.com and sign up for our email list. Of course, premium members are always entered, and you don't need to watch to win. All right, premium members, speaking of you all, you know, we are going to be doing our annual ornament party next in prime time. That's just for premium members of Clayshare. We're going to be making some of my favorite holiday ornaments. We're starting early and kicking off the holiday season. I know it's not Thanksgiving yet, but we got to make ornaments because you got to get them dried and fired before Christmas, especially if you have to ship them somewhere. And so we're going to start a little early. All right, everybody, you take care. Thank you so much for joining me, and get out there and make some great